Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. I'd like to say thank you to this episode's sponsor, Supernight. Supernight offers LED light strips to illuminate under walls, panels, cabinets, etc. I put one behind my dry erase board and it looks amazing. There's a plethora of colors to choose from, and you can find out more at supernight.cc. That's supernight.cc, and enjoy the episode. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small, a podcast about brand development, entrepreneurship, and innovation in the modern world. In this episode, I'm joined by Nate Checketts, CEO and co-founder of Rhone, a men's performance lifestyle brand. Prior to Rhone, Nate worked for and consulted with some of the biggest technology and entertainment companies in the world, including the NFL. Listen as we talk about Nate's upbringing, his previous work experience, and the development of Rhone as it is today. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Nate Checketts of Rhone. Nate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Cameron. I'm excited to speak.
Yeah, so I want to start out with your upbringing. So where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Well, depending on the level of detail you want from me, I grew up mostly in Connecticut in an area called Fairfield County, which is, about 45 minutes outside of Manhattan. The vast majority of the workforce in our area works actually in Manhattan, commutes in. I was born in Boston and did kind of 5 years in Salt Lake City when my dad took a job out there before we moved to Connecticut, and that's where I went to high school. Grew up in a great family, 6 kids in our family, and 2 amazing parents.
Awesome. So did you have an entrepreneurship mindset growing up? Did you ever say a lemonade stand or sell any products as a kid?
Yeah, I did. In fact, my parents like to joke that I was always hawking something because, I remember we got to go to a Yankees baseball game, and I got a ball with my brother. And before we ended up leaving, he and I had struck a deal with the guy next to us to sell it before my dad immediately came and pulled us and said, you absolutely may not sell that ball. And we started a lemonade stand at the end of our street when we moved in Connecticut. And you have to understand, my family had just moved from Salt Lake City, Utah, 6 kids, to fit in with the prim and proper area that we had moved in, to say the least, was a challenge. Mm-hmm. And so, I think in an effort to get us out of the house, my mom let us take our wagon. We went down to the edge of the street. We set up and had like a banner lemonade sales day.
Wow.
Because we realized that this house at the edge of the street was having a party there. So we were selling lemonade, and my mom said, what happened? We said, we made like $70 selling lemonade today. And my mom was like, what? And we said, yeah, we think there was a wedding going on at the end of the street. And my mom was like, you did what? You sold lemonade at the wedding? We were like, yeah, there were a lot of people there. And it's even worse than that, because the next day we went back, like as if there was going to be another wedding reception. And turns out it was not a wedding reception that we had been selling lemonade to. It was actually this woman's husband had passed away, and it was his wake.
Oh,
so
no.
It was so we got in a lot of trouble, learned a lot of experiences at a young age from an entrepreneurship standpoint.
That's so interesting. So that first day selling, you were not aware at all? No one really said anything at the booth, or how did that go?
They were I think they were amused. I mean, we were really young.
Yeah.
And I think they were just amused by it. And, it's a very nice, great area. But, we didn't, as a 8 or 9-year-old, you're not kind of fully aware why people are dressed up or why they're getting together. You just know that they might be thirsty and have money in their pockets. So
for sure. Wow. That's so crazy. So I saw you went to BYU in 2004. What did you study there?
I was a finance major with an emphasis in entrepreneurship. BYU has a great entrepreneurship program, and it's certainly developed since I left. But yeah, that was my focus.
And then what was your experience like at BYU? Were you part of any clubs, athletics, etc.?
Yeah, I had a great time there. Because of my major, I spent a lot of time in the Marriott Business School, and I joined a couple of clubs there. I thought at one point that I might want to go into investment banking before I realized exactly what that was. So did had a great experience. I also got married in college, as many
Okay.
people at BYU do. So um, found my beautiful wife there, and we've been married 15 plus years now.
Wow.
Um, so, but but yeah, I mean, I had a great experience. I did not play sports for BYU, but I did a lot of intramural sports.
Okay, gotcha. And then you said you had an emphasis of entrepreneurship, and a couple other guests I've had on, they talk about some renowned entrepreneurship projects they have that maybe influenced where they're at now. Did you have any projects at BYU within an entrepreneurship program, maybe that you recall on that inspired you to create your own?
Yeah, well, I don't know that I would say inspired me to create Rome, but I didn't really know what entrepreneurship was, but
Yeah,
I was attracted to it as I got to know more and more about it because I was always building things. After the lemonade stand incident, we ended up starting a summer camp in my parents' backyard that ended up running for 8 years. My two brothers ran it after me, and we were getting 40 to 50 kids a week, teaching them how to play sports. And it was a great way of creating summer income that
for sure.
made mowing lawns pale in comparison. And so when I found entrepreneurship, kind of started to understand, I was like, maybe this is for me. Maybe this is what I want to do. And there was a business plan competition at the school that I think was in maybe its third or fourth year and has become an even bigger deal since. But real companies have launched out of this business plan competition. So I decided to enter it with like 2 days
Oh, wow.
until the deadline. And so wrote this business plan, ended up making it into the next round. We ended up making it into the state finals of the business plan competition,
Wow.
and raised some early angel money to kind of kick the project off. And what it was is it was, we had this thesis that people were using their phones for everything. This was back in 2007. So
Okay.
the iPhone was just coming out, hadn't come out yet, but SMS was, kind of all the rage. We were like, you could order food from your favorite restaurant, have it ready to be picked up without having to call or interact with someone, which now sounds so laughable, but at the time was like revolutionary.
Yeah,
And the other interesting thing about it is, the people who were evaluating our business idea were so much older and didn't understand kind of the pace at which technology was evolving. They
for
have
sure.
all these concerns about payment processing, and we had kind of figured it out. So that business ended up launching, and we pivoted into kind of focusing on sports stadiums and arenas, and we sold the business to the 49ers 3 years
Wow.
later. And the IP that we developed and got patents around is still used in, if you go to Levi Stadium, and they've brought the technology to other arenas. You can order food right from your seat, have it available for pickup or delivery. And so it was it was a great experience.
For sure. Man, that sounds like such an amazing experience. So, following college prior to Roan, then, what were some of the jobs that you were working at this time?
Well, it was I when I got to college, in our faith, we many men and women choose to serve 2-year missions for our church, and so
Hmm.
I was fortunate to be able to do that, and I was called to serve in Rome, Italy, which is not exactly the easiest place to spread what others might call Mormonism, but the belief in our church and kind of our faith. And so that was quite the experience of knocking on so many doors and meeting people and getting to know and understand how to teach people and how to deliver messages effectively.
For sure.
And I had a wonderful experience there. But then when I came back, I took a job at what's called the Missionary Training Center. And I taught Italian to incoming missionaries who were about to go out. So I had become fluent on my mission, and so got a chance to teach them about what they were going to go out and teach, and also teach them the language. And I did that for 2 years, and that helps my wife and I make it through college. She worked at a bank there called Zion's Bank, and I worked at the Missionary Training Center, and we both went to school, and it was a great experience.
Awesome. And then Rhone came around in 2014. So what was the inspiration behind creating Rhone? Also get into clothing specifically.
Well, there's a mid-period that I'll explain and how that path happened. But, really, so after the company that we sold to the 49ers was called Manja, which is the Italian word of verb command to eat. So that's, that you can kind of understand the connection there because my affection for the Italian language. So after we sold that, I realized, I had passed up on a pretty attractive consulting job fresh out of college to get this company up and running. And I realized I knew sports and I knew technology. And so I started consulting in that area. I did some interesting projects for the Miami Dolphins and the related sports group. And it led me to an interview at the NFL. And I was actually hired at the NFL to run the sponsorship strategy for new business development.
Okay.
What that means is that, anytime the league is going out to get a new partner, we would do all this strategy work. And so that's where I focus my time, and in particular, focus on the technology category. And while I was at the NFL, I realized, man alive, I felt guilty, I guess is the best way to explain it. Because I had this great job. All of my friends were like, wow, it's the coolest place that you could ever work. The NFL, football was my favorite sport growing up, still is my favorite sport. And I didn't love it. And I couldn't figure out why. And it was probably like 3 to 4 months in that I was like, maybe I'm just not meant to work at a big company. Maybe startup and entrepreneurship has a way of almost like ruining you. You become unhireable at other places because, you get that thrill of starting something on your own. It's for me, it's indescribable. I can't fully put it into words, but that's my love language,
Yeah, for sure.
And it's the roller coaster of the highs and the lows. Like one day you feel like you're about to take over the world, and the next day you're not going to be able to make payroll. And then when you go into a corporate job, you go from this roller coaster of emotions, the ups and the downs, to everything feels like a kiddie ride. And, not that it's not hard or challenging. It's just like nothing feels that bad and nothing feels that good. You don't get that excited about anything.
Totally.
And so that was really hard for me. And as soon as I realized that, I was riding a train into work because I commuted. And I remember writing in my journal, like, I know that I'm an entrepreneur. That's what I want to do. And I want to go and build a brand that matters. And I remember underneath that, building a brand that matters, I wrote, that doesn't mean cure cancer. For me, it meant building a brand that could have a positive impact on the world. And I didn't know if that meant I was going to be manufacturing, soap, or, certainly didn't think at the time that it meant making clothing, but I did know that I wanted to do something meaningful. And so really over the next year, I was open-minded about things. I had so many conversations. I was always, if I saw something interesting, I would reach out to people. I'd have conversations. I mean, half of my job was just like entertaining my ADD I need to be prepared for when I go out and do something else.
Yeah.
And the idea for Roan was not mine. It was my brother-in-law's. We were all together as a family for Christmas, and as I said, there's 6 kids in my family, and my older sister's husband, was over, and we all got. My mom would always give Christmas pajamas, but this particular Christmas, she gave us all a pair of sweatpants, and and she gave us all a pair of Lululemon sweatpants. And I was familiar with Lululemon at the time. This was probably 2011, so I was familiar with the brand, but I never tried any of their product. I didn't even know that they made men's product.
Yeah.
And I was like, great, thanks, Mom. And my brother-in-law was like, whoa, wait a minute, you can't wear that. And I was like, why not? It's a pair of sweatpants. He's like, look at the logo, look at the packaging. Like, this is clearly a women's yoga brand. And I was less bothered by that. So then I went into work at the NFL, and I think it was like a month or 2 later that Budweiser, which was a big sponsor of the league, sent a package of Lululemon products for some of the women in the office. And they opened it up and they started going through it. And I was like, oh, I've got some Lululemon sweatpants. And it was like such a record scratching moment. You have to understand that at the time, Lululemon was 92% women's. So they did very little men's. They were known as a women's brand. The scandal was coming out about the fact that Chip Wilson had said that, they had all these sheer leggings, which meant that you could see through them. And Chip Wilson had come out and said, well, the reason for that is because women are wearing the wrong size. They need to, they need to size up, and their legs are stretching the fabric too much. And it was a big controversy. So it was very much at the forefront of kind of like, I don't know, pop culture and, women doing yoga. And here I am in this male dominated environment. And I just admitted that I have a pair of their pants. And my coworker next to me said, Nate, do you buy your underwear at Victoria's Secret? And I was no. All right, come on. Like, that's not fair. And so I called my brother-in-law up and I was like, you won't believe what happened to me. Like, clearly you're not the only one that feels this way. And he was like, we should start a brand that is focused on the men's market, but uses premium fabrication, because most of the men's market is serviced by providers who their primary method of distribution is wholesale. He was an analyst in the retail sector.
Okay.
And that idea started kind of ruminating in my mind. And as I spent more time on it, I thought, okay, there's clearly a market opportunity here. We mapped out all of the existing players in the performance active space, and there were over 200 female-focused premium brands, and the majority of the men's product was being sold by brands that were lower priced, lower quality, and all within a similar gender mix, which was like maybe 55 to 60% male.
Yeah.
But there was no pure play, 100% men's focused premium active brand. It just didn't exist. We couldn't find one. And the ones that we did find were like focused on cycling or triathlons or, and so we thought people's wardrobes are changing. They're going to be more active focused, more performance focused, and people are going to want better quality in a world where sustainability should be important. And it's not just about mass consumption, but it's about buying things that actually last.
Absolutely.
So, as we thought about all of those different points, it became apparent like this is a good idea, but I still, I wasn't excited about going and building a men's Lululemon. That just didn't get me excited. I didn't want to do that. But what stood out for me is I remember coming home, and I have 3 boys,
okay.
We had 2 at the time, and my wife I don't think she was expecting our 3rd yet. So we just had our 2 boys. And I remember thinking about, my goodness, men are at a really interesting point in culture right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, where we really need to wake up and do better. We just need to be better.
Yeah.
And I am a big proponent of equal gender rights and fighting the gender pay gap.
For sure.
And I also thought about the negative repercussions to young boys who are growing up in this era, and they're hearing the future is female. It's take your daughter to work day. And so how can we speak in a balanced approach about not just what not to do, but what to do? How to be, how that it's okay to be a man and to be a man of principle who stands up and fights for feminism
Yeah.
and fights for equal rights. And I didn't feel like there was a brand that ever spoke to me that encouraged me to be a better father or a better husband or more active in my community. It was all about lift more weights, run faster, sweat longer. And I had realized I wasn't going to be a professional athlete probably when I was 13 or 14. So like, while I enjoy getting out and sweating and I'm still active, I'm still very active, but like most of my day is oriented around trying to be the best person I could be. I wanted a brand that spoke to that. And so as soon as I felt that alignment with what we could do from a brand voice perspective and what I was really, really passionate about, plus a market opportunity, that's how Rhone really came to be.
Gotcha. And then what does the name Roan come from then? Did you have this name when you started as well?
We didn't. No, in fact,
Okay.
for a long time, we just called it Nuco.
Okay.
It was kind of a joke because, what I learned in my first company, it's that there are a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs now. At the time, I didn't feel like that was like, wow, I'm really lucky to be an entrepreneur. It was like, I feel like I don't have a choice. This is what I have to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to be crazy. But people spend and waste, and I did too in my first company, so much time thinking about the name and thinking about the logo and thinking about their business cards and thinking about what their title should be. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't have the luxury of wasting time on that because I couldn't quit my full-time job at the NFL to get this started. I had a 2-hour commute, 1 hour each way, and I had 2 little kids at home that I needed to be present for. So I wasn't going to waste. Entrepreneurship at its heart should be really simple, and it's about 2 things: can you make a great product, and can you sell that product? And that's kind of it. And so that's what I focused all my energy and attention on. And when it came to do a name, we had a brainstorming session that consisted of throwing a bunch of names on a whiteboard and figuring out which ones we could get domains for, and all that. And we fell in love with the name Rhone, and it served us really well. But it was not one that like was predestined, I don't think.
Yeah, for sure. So starting out with Roan, what did you attack for product wise? What were some of your first prototypes, and were you specializing in shirts, etc.? So what were some of your first products?
Yeah, I mean, really, we were hyper focused on creating the absolute best product that was going to be anti-odor. So we spent a lot of time on fabric. And still to this day, I don't think there's anybody in our category that's close to us. We pioneered a technology called Gold Fusion that is, after 100 washes, is 99% effective still at treating odor. And to put that in comparison, most active brands are somewhere between 15 to 20 washes. And after 20 washes, you're lucky if you're at 50% efficacy rate in fighting odor. So, so we spent a lot of time on that. And so our initial run is we had a short sleeve tee, a long sleeve tee, a tank, a short, and a pant. And of those products, none of them are still in our mix because they've all gotten so much better. As we've talked to investors, they were like, well, we think you need to slow your development of product. You're developing product too fast. I was like, we're not going to change that because we think innovation is what keeps us fresh. And as soon as we find a better way of doing something, we're going to do it that way. So,
Sure.
it gets tricky from an inventory standpoint sometimes, but we're just not willing to cut corners on the quality of the product that we make. So that's how we got off the ground.
Gotcha. And I heard you just mention investors. Did you acquire funding from the start, say for production, or was this backed from your full-time job, or how did that look?
So my brother-in-law, who's my co-founder, and we put in kind of some initial capital to make the prototypes and everything else, and also do our first photo shoot. But when it came to doing our first production run, Kickstarter was a thing then, but
For
the
sure.
idea of launching an apparel company on Kickstarter, admittedly just didn't cross my mind. And there have been some that have been very successful that way. I wish I would have been that. Forward thinking, but we weren't. So we went out and raised friends and family money, a couple $100,000 just to get our first production run off the ground and, build the website and get some of the initial kind of marketing materials out. And then, from there have been able to raise some rounds of capital pretty successfully. And we're now backed by L. Catterton, which is the largest consumer private equity fund.
Okay, awesome. Once established, how did you guys begin to market then? Say, pitch to your first customers, which might have been family, but did you utilize social media and what other aspects?
Yeah, well, we did. I mean, if you can think about all the mistakes you could possibly make, I think we made all of them.
Yeah,
But the one thing we did know is we knew how to talk to people and how to create conversation. And so, we had these little note cards that we called pass along cards, and we would challenge each other to give out as many as possible. And we had started to collect emails, pre-launch, with kind of like a base site that would collect emails saying something is coming. And so it was email marketing and it was word of mouth, and that was it, really for the first 6 to 8 months. We had a social media presence, but it was small, if anything. Social media at the time was not the giant that it is today.
for sure.
I think most of the customers were acquired organically and by word of mouth.
Gotcha. And then I looked at the website and saw that you guys added some of this dress category. So I was wondering, what made you add the business casual side to Rome, starting out as a more fitness side?
Well, really, that had always been somewhat in the DNA of what we were trying to build, which is, if you think about how our life has changed and evolved as a society, even just over the last 10 years, more and more people are biking to work or walking to work or, just being active in general. And there's a growing acceptance for the casualization of what's happened, in the workplace. So
For sure.
Very few workplaces are requiring a dress shirt to work, or kind of the casual Fridays have bleeded into casual Monday through Thursdays.
Yeah.
And so we thought, as this casualization process started to happen, that there would be a real opportunity to make the most comfortable work clothes possible, because people were going to start requiring that level of comfort in all aspects of their life. And truthfully, the pandemic has just accelerated that,
Oh,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
Can you imagine if we had all started our careers this way? And it's then 2 years, 3 years in, it's all right, now you're going to come to the office 5 days a week and you're going to be required to wear stiff woven dress shirts or starchy and these stiff, scratchy pants. We'd all be like, no, you can't pay me enough money to do that.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we're going back. And I think if people do want to look professional, but they want to feel the comfort of that COVID lifestyle, I would challenge anyone to put our dress shirt against anybody else's. It's the most comfortable thing I think we make.
Yeah. Love it. So looking at Roan today, what would you say separates you from your competitors then?
I think it's really an absolute maniacal focus on fabric quality.
Yeah.
We are crazy about it. And, our third co-founder, Kyle, who runs our product team, he will test everything. When we developed the dress shirt fabric, he took it on a 12-mile mountain run in Croatia. And so, we test like, crazy. We put it through extreme circumstances. So, and it's a willingness to invest in fabric quality where others might, use it as an opportunity to boost margin. Mm-hmm. We really just focus on making the best product and getting an acceptable margin to be able to sell it. So I think that's what's been really cool. And, we've had some really great wins. We've become the #1 men's brand for Peloton and for Equinox. And we certainly have grown our presence in other wholesale stores. Like we have a great business with Nordstrom, but the bulk of our sales, 80+% is through our own website. So we have a ruthless focus on data and getting to know our customers and building our cohorts that way. So yeah, it's a lot of little things I think we do really well.
For sure. Get into your products now. What would you say are some of your top sellers?
Well, it's certainly the kind of our heritage products that we launched with, our active products. And then, the commuter or kind of dressier line that you referenced, what we call our commuter pants and our commuter dress shirts, were some of our best-selling products pre-pandemic. They've slowed a little bit, but they're doing well. And then, our underwear is, we haven't spent enough time on that category, but we get like rave reviews against all of these other underwear startups. People swear by our underwear. So, it depends on the category. It depends on the person, and it depends on the distribution channel. But, those were the ones that stick out to me.
Gotcha. And then you mentioned around 80% of your customers come to your website. So where else can Rhone be found?
Yeah, it's certainly in premium retail stores like Nordstrom and others. And then we have 5 retail stores, 4 of which are in New York City, which has been interesting to navigate with the pandemic, but all of them are open. The awesome. 5th one our 5th store and 4th store in New York will be opening in the coming months, which we're really, really excited about. And so those would be the other places.
Awesome. And then I have this question on specs of your own position. So with Rhone, where it's at today, what are some of your main roles as CEO, say day-to-day processes? Like what does an average day look like for you?
Yeah, I wish there was. Maybe I don't, because I think I'd get bored. There really isn't an average day. I think my main focus is on the team and on our strategy. So, I focus a lot of my energy on, making sure the team and the culture is great, because it's almost as if when you start a business, it's, you're a player on the field. And when you bring in a couple of people, you're like a player coach. You're on the field, but you're also, kind of coaching everyone. And then it's like you're a position coach and then an assistant coach. And by the end, as a head coach, you're not really calling the plays even. You're making sure your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator and quarterback and tight end coach and offensive line coach are really well positioned to be successful and create the best team dynamic. And you're setting the tone and setting the strategy. And so that's where I think of, how my role has evolved. And I've loved every stage of the journey. I don't know that I would trade one for the other, but
for sure,
really where I spend my time now.
Gotcha. If you could share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned along your way or regret, what would that be? Just anything.
Gosh, it's hard, because I think, the one piece of advice I often give when I speak to kind of college age students is, embrace your own ignorance, because, it's so easy to believe, I wish I knew as much as so-and-so did, or I wish I had the level of experience that so-and-so did, and that would help. But the truth is you have a real unique advantage in not knowing, and your not knowing can lead to great questions. And those great questions can lead you to seeing things in a way differently than people who are entrenched in a knowledge or experience base just simply cannot see by virtue of their own experience or knowledge.
For sure.
And so, I think don't be afraid of what you don't know, and really embrace that, and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, for sure. Nate, thank you so much for joining me. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Roan at Roan.com. Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of Starting Small. If you would, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Also, follow Starting Small Pod on social platforms to keep up to date on future guests.